All right, so today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, and I am up 0.5% today. It was a pretty crazy day today, actually, because I was down over 2% today. So I was back down at 250K after almost hitting 260, and then I went right back up to 260. So it's been a pretty crazy day. I'm not sure if I hit 260. Let me see. Oh, so I hit 260 for literally 1 minute. So I briefly tagged 260, and then it gave up a little bit of gains, about $500. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy day. Robinhood was down over 2%, I assume, because it's my number one position. And then it came right back up. And of course, my Roth IRA also seems to be doing pretty good because AMD, I believe, is having a great reaction due to Oracle. I'm not sure exactly what Oracle said, but they say they've been seeing some increased demand for their products. So I assume that is very beneficial for AMD, even though my Roth IRA is still down pretty far from all-time highs, almost at 2K, just under it. So it's about like 1900 something. But I think we'll get back up there eventually. But of course, this is all on a day where QQQ is up 0.28% before the market closed, and then up another 0.16% in the after hours market. And just to give you guys a quick update on some of my recent transactions, I do have some more puny dividends on the way, and then two decent dividends on the way, Nike and Pepsi. And speaking of Pepsi, they actually did announce a deal with Celsius. I believe they're going to give up Rockstar for a bigger stake of Celsius. So I think it's interesting. That frees up Pepsi to focus more on their other products. And of course, that benefits Celsius because that they can just solely concentrate their focus on energy drinks and their own business, and they mutually benefit each other, of course. But I did also go ahead and pull my principal out of Norwegian Cruise Lines, even though I do think long-term Norwegian has a great future, both like fundamentally and technically on the charts. I think Norwegian potentially could outperform Royal Caribbean just purely based on stock performance. But I decided to go ahead and just pull my principal out because at the end of the day, it's only $1,000. It's not like it's a huge part of my portfolio. So I'm just freeing up a little bit of that capital. And of course, I paid back. I used most of that to just lower my margin a little bit. I do have a little bit left over. If we go over to Norwegian, yeah, so it's up 3.3% today, and I have 20 shares, basically all profit, similar to Lemonade. 20 shares is just pure profit. So I did decide to just pull out my principal. Wasn't really doing much for my account anyways. I should have had a bigger stake just because of how tremendously it's been performing lately. But it is what it is, that's kind of like that balance you got to have with the stock market. Like, should you risk more? Should you not? How much risk is too much? And obviously that's all subjective, and it's heavily dependent on where that stock goes. So if the stock goes down, then obviously you risked too much and now you're kind of in a hole. But if the stock goes up a lot, like Robinhood, then everybody thinks you're a genius, whatnot. So I guess I should have bet more on Lemonade and Norwegian Cruise Line, but it is what it is. I took my little bit of gains. Most likely will be revisiting those stocks in the future potentially, but I am going to be a little bit more cautious. But focusing or shifting our focus to Robinhood now, I did have an opportunity to close these covered calls at a pretty decent profit, over 60% originally. So if we go ahead and look, it was trading in the 120s. So I could have closed it, for about $125, $130 a contract. And of course, it's risen substantially in value. So now if I want to close it, I have to pay over $350, basically $360 per contract, if I want to close those. So I am basically back to break even though a few days ago, before Robinhood announced that they were going to be included in the S&P 500. I was at 60, over 60, almost 70% gains on these. So I could have taken profit, but it is what it is. It's better to be safe than sorry. And at the end of the day, it is at 170, right? So if Robinhood somehow hits 170 this year, then it is what it is. Eventually, if it actually does get to that point, of course, I can just roll it out into next year, maybe into 200 strike and whatnot. And at that point, I will be selling heavier, much more covered calls. So I still consider it a win. My account is at all-time highs, 260. I don't think my account has ever hit 260 before. So now I am at 109.8% year to date, year over year, to over 247%. And of course, all time, 418%. All right, so now we get to today's standouts, and most of these I've already touched on, but Palantir having a great reaction today, of course, most likely because of the escalation of war overseas and the tension here at home. You can say what you want. Everybody has their own opinions. Obviously, I'm not a political channel. I'm not going to comment on that. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at it objectively, more tension here at home, more tension overseas, that is very beneficial for Palantir. That means more government contracts, more corporate contracts. It is what it is. Obviously, my exposure to Palantir is not what it once was, so I'm not benefiting as much from this reaction. But still, I thought it's at least noteworthy. It's enough to comment on for today's standouts. And obviously, I've already touched on Pepsi, but there's this one stock called ATCO, something like that. And it is down over 11% today, but it has performed tremendously. It was up at one point 4,800%, 4,800. And in just a few days, in 3 days, it was up 4,800%. And this is the type of stuff that I was talking about in my more recent videos previously, just talking about this bull market, talking about these IPOs, all these SPACs, whatever. I honestly don't know what ACO is, but this type of performance, it starts to scare me, right? Whenever I see stocks like some random stock I've never even heard of go up 4,000%, that starts to scare me a little bit, and it just kind of reinforces my fear a little bit going into 2026, 2027, that we're going to see a substantial market correction or a crash. I don't think it's going to happen immediately right now, just because we've already had a correction this year with the Liberation Day, of course, when my account almost got wiped out. But we're not going to revisit that. That is not a pleasant memory to revisit. But like I said, we've already had a correction this year, so I highly doubt that we'll get another one. Maybe we'll get one in December, November, whatever. Every time I see these IPOs, these SPACs, or these penny stocks like ATCO going up 4,000% and everybody talking about them on X, on TikTok, on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, it starts to worry me. And of course, we get to some of your guys' comments on my recent videos. And we got Not Financial Advice saying, cool video, bro, I learned it. And we have saying, yo, keep up the great work, by the way. Love the vids. You got great insight. Waiting for a bear market to accumulate is smart. I've been eyeing QBTS. Love the quantum space. So I honestly don't know anything about QBTS and the whole quantum space, but I do know that Google is also involved in it. So when it comes to quantum or like self-driving cars, whatnot, I think Google is like the safe bet. Obviously, that also means that you're probably not going to get those crazy 1,000% gains or whatever. But, I don't really know too much about quantum. I'm not really familiar with the company, so I can't really speak on it. But I appreciate the kind words. We have Too Suave Official. Looks like you're a Minecraft YouTuber or something. That's pretty interesting. But Too Suave asks, what's a good stock recommendation right now? So I don't really like to recommend stocks, but if you keep up with my videos from here on out, you'll kind of notice my moves. I'm always keeping you guys up to date with my most recent transaction history, even if it's something small. or something that like is very insignificant, like my very small dividends that I get, I still keep you guys updated with all of that, so you can just keep up with that. Or, you know, as I'm showing you guys my portfolio and my videos, you can just take a look at my top 10 holdings or whatever, just see what kind of moves I'm making. So I don't really like to give stock recommendations, but basically just keep up with the types of videos that I post. And I think over time you'll kind of see where my head is most of the time, and just some things that I'm seeing in the market.